Alright, so the title of the presentation and the topic is to review the hunting season for the past, however long it's been open. And I don't have too much time, so I'll go through very quickly. So what's been happening in the last, since the season started? So it's been characterized by several publicly broadcasted breaches of wildlife laws, including the poaching of protected species. We have had a lot of concern over the scale of the exploitation with respect to the number of animals caught and whether this has been sustainable. And also, unfortunately, it's been characterized by a lot of arguing, which is unfortunate because we're all stakeholders here, and whether or not we like it, we have to work together. Social media, for one, perhaps for the first time in the last couple of years, has really allowed us to get a glimpse into what's been happening. So that's been something new as well. So why have these breaches occurred? So first of all, we could characterize it in terms of people who know the law but break it anyway. And that speaks to a lack of enforcement. And that right there is the biggest issue that we face. We wouldn't be here today if we had a proper range of enforcement measures. And we know the issues for that. Lack of wardens, vehicles, equipments. Also, the penalties are too low as well. But regardless of anything we do here today, whether we put new laws in, whether we say we want to do bans, it doesn't matter if we don't have enforcement. So first and foremost, enforcement has to be there. Secondly, we can look at people who don't know the law. So there are a lot of people out there who mean well, and they just don't know. So there is a clear need for hunters to be better informed on conservation laws, and then need for hunters to demonstrate to the community that they're interested in establishing a system of sustainable management. And we think of Ducks Unlimited in North America, fantastic organization who are heavily involved in conservation. If we could get an organization like that in Trinidad, working in that kind of scheme, fantastic. Because I don't know if anybody here in particular is against hunting because it's cruel or anything like that. We all here are interested in ultimately sustainable management of populations, not against hunting per se. Other than the breaches of the law, there was a concern of the scale of exploitation. And we believe a large portion of that is to be due to commercial sale. TTFNC policy on hunting is it's based on the precautionary principles, so that ultimately protecting sustainable populations is what's important, based on sound empirical knowledge. And in the absence of scientific data, we do support the precautionary principle. So what that means for commercial sale is essentially that if we don't know what the impact of commercial sale is, we should not be allowing it. With respect to the sale of wild caught meat, here's our concern. We have a growing middle class in the country, so that's increasing disposable incomes, greater ability to purchase wild meat themselves, but they don't have the inclination to go hunt wild meat themselves. So that sets up a system where commercial hunters and commercial poachers, they have a great opportunity to exploit the resources of the country. And commercial consumers are ultimately disconnected from the impact of their purchase. A hunter in the forest might spare a deer that's pregnant. If a poacher or commercial hunter is being paid to hunt that deer, he may not be so inclined. So the sale of wild caught meat, as I said before, we don't believe that it should be allowed as long as we don't know if it's sustainable. Right, so do we have a right to wild caught meat? No, we believe it's a privilege. So a right is something that you can extend to the entire population. You can have freedom of speech, justice, everybody can benefit from it. We don't believe that everybody has a right to having wild caught meat, right? It is a privilege. Next slide. Do you have a right to sell or trade wild caught meat? No, we don't believe you have a right to sell or trade wild caught meat. It's like saying I could go into the forest and cut trees and sell them myself. You can't do that, right? So, the commercial poacher is what we have all identified as being one of the main issues. And perhaps Mohan could probably talk more on that later on the different categories of poachers and hunters. But the commercial poacher is what we flag as being the most significant issue. So why does commercial poaching happen? Well, it's economically attractive. There's a low risk of being captured, low risk of detection, low risk of prosecution, and if you are caught, the fines are too low. In comparison to that, you have high returns. The price of wild meat is high enough to justify taking these few risks. So we believe if you want to control commercial poaching, you have to make it uneconomical and therefore unattractive. Important to keep in mind, the trade will never be removed entirely, but if you could bring it down to some degree, it is going to help substantially. So by banning the sale of wild-caught meat, drive it underground, trade will be reduced because it will be harder for people to access, and fewer people will be willing to break the law. And this could be done in stages if need be. The price will increase because of the reduce in supply and the risks involved. So that's where wildlife farming comes in, and the all-important enforcement and high fines. Again, nothing we say here today can be done. Nothing here can be done without higher fines and policies in place. Next slide. According to the draft FPAWC, as far as I could understand from it, the sale of wild-caught meat is only going to be allowed through if you have a propagation and permit, which seems to indicate that you're only going to be allowed to sell wild meat if you have a farm, which if the state recognizes that threat as well, that's one more voice suggesting against commercial sale. And one more. Discouraging commercial poaching by removing the threat of commercial extraction. Recreational hunters can continue doing what they enjoy, and the pressures on wildlife are thereby reduced. And we also, from a national security perspective, reduce the amount of smuggled wild meat coming into the country, and therefore the other contraband that tends to come along with it. And I don't think I have time to go into the rest of this. Do I have 5 minutes again? No, that's it. All right. So I guess we open the floor to questions. 3 minutes. Oh, okay, very good. Right, so loss of wetlands. We all agree that habitat is the biggest concern, far above hunting itself. Poaching and habitat loss are big issues. More than 50% of the wetlands of the country have been lost over the years, and this comes from a 2001 cabinet policy document. Historical accounts of ducks, we have blue-winged teals numbering in the hundreds and thousands back in 1961. We know that isn't the case now. Duck numbers have plummeted substantially, largely as a result of habitat loss. And the ducks that you do see, we have a substantial amount of work being done by the Wildfowl Trust. Throughout the years, close to 9,000 wild Muscovy ducks have been released into the wild, in addition to other species. So the ducks you're seeing out there, a lot of them are introduced. In terms of draft FPAWC on duck hunting, in the old Conservation of Wildlife Act, all the ducks were allowed, you could hunt except for the pintails. In the new draft policy, all the ducks are now protected except for these 3 species. So again, the state recognizes that threat to ducks as well. So if you have a combination of habitat loss, decline in population, the state recognizes it as a threat as well, and duck hunting is not that popular in Trinidad and Tobago. It means that it is a good opportunity to do something about it. If you don't want to tackle it from a complete ban, you could either reduce the bag limits. Currently, you could allow to hunt 30 ducks per day. Either way, we need that enforcement coming in there to help control any infringements. Important thing to consider, perhaps you can consider a couple strongholds. So consider making the Carney rice fields a protected area. You could hunt in the periphery and allow the rice fields to be a stronghold. Last note on our cage birds. So out of the 8 seed eaters and seed finches that used to be popular in cages, now only about 2 can be seen with any regularity. And this is attributed to trapping. It's not attributed to carrying spraying, and if you want to debate that, you're free to do so. One more page. Right. The draft policy, all of the, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of our seabirds are now on the critically endangered list according to draft policy, which isn't final, by the way, but it is the draft policy. So the state again recognizes that threat. So we are suggesting remove them from the 5th schedule. Frankly, there's nothing left to trap. All the birds that are coming in are smuggled anyway. We will make the exception for bullfinch simply because everybody has a bullfinch who has a caged bird. So it's politically easier for it to be passed. So we could allow that. But again, enforcement of the law has to be in place to prevent trapping of birds again. The habitat is still intact, so there's no reason that the birds can't be reintroduced or naturally recolonize the island once the enforcement is in place. And final slide. We all here have a lot in common. We both enjoy the outdoors. We both have a vested interest in seeing the environment remain in place. Let's not throw away the opportunity to make something cohesive and a sound management policy for the sake of arguments. So thank you very much.